here, but now would be the time, if anybody from the general public would like to comment, now would be the time. And just state your name, and we welcome you into the committee. Stacy McPherson, I think, has a card. If you would like to speak, we can put 3 people at the table. Anybody else? We can, like I said, we can put 3 people at the table. Wherever you'd like to be. It's all yours, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, committee, for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Vicki Tolliver August. First and foremost, I know the secretary knows who I am. Dr. Renda Hodnett knows who I am. I am a foster parent, and I'm an educator as well. I hear a lot of talk about educators, and yes, there is a shortage in education, and we have innovative ways for filling those positions, so I do concur with what you stated. My experience with this agency has been an utter nightmare, a nightmare. I've come to the point where I'm considering closing my home. However, I've had numerous people to ask me not to close my home because I've been a staunch advocate for these kids in foster care. When I say that my complaints have been documented, Secretary Walters and Dr. Hodnett knows my complaints have been documented. And because of that, I feel as though I have a target on my back. My experience first started, and let me please go back and say, I do thank you too, because I can tell you this much. Every time I have written a letter to Secretary Walters and Dr. Hodnett, I have gotten responses. Should I have had to escalate it to the top? Not really. Having 5 to 6 managers, one would think it wouldn't have had to get that far. But that is how DCFS works. You have so many people at the top, it's top heavy, that when it gets to the bottom, nothing is getting done. And you're working these people to death when these other 5 to 6 individuals are sitting there sometimes in the confines of their homes, working from home, making these large salaries.
Can you give us, as you talking, can you give us like a real life example?
Yes, okay.
A challenge you had that we could all relate to?
Yes. Well, I don't know if you could relate
well,
to
not
this.
relate,
Okay.
but that we could understand.
Okay.
That we could understand.
When I first came into the agency, we were required to provide documentation of everyone that's in the home. And I'm talking about confidential information, birth certificates, Social Security cards, driver's license, immunization records, things of that nature. Well, I did that for every family member. And lo and behold, all of my information vanished. We're talking about confidential information. Social Security numbers, driver's license, all of my documents vanished. I had a right to be upset because I work with children. I do the same thing as child welfare workers, but from an educational perspective. I write reports. I work with families. I evaluate, do diagnostic testing for kids. Some of my reports can be as short as 15 pages. Some of them can be 70 pages. It just depends. And I work as a part of a multidisciplinary team. And most of the time, I am the evaluation coordinator. So when I get this confidential information from these families and doctors and psychologists, it's incumbent upon me to make sure those documents stay confidential. I cannot lose that information. It has to stay under lock and key. So yes, I was very upset that all of my information, and to this day, almost 6 years later, nobody can tell me where it went at all. So when I made a complaint about that, the child welfare worker who I was assigned to, she was upset. And she said some very disparaging words about me, which I didn't know until I get further down in my story, and I can tell you. So to fast forward, this child care worker. She did the home study. As a person who's responsible for writing reports, I give copies. All school districts that do, it's called pupil appraisal. We go over the findings with parents. We discuss these findings to make sure if there's anything that's wrong, we fix it. We have a compliance department that rereads our reports to make sure that we don't have Billy listed as Barbara or the date of birth wrong, So we have someone to oversee what we also write. Well, that didn't happen in my case. I continuously asked for a copy of my home study. I was told the agency's policy was that they don't give you copies. I said, okay, well, could I read the home study? You can keep it and we just go over it because I wanted to make sure everything was accurate. They refused. I went all the way up to the top. I didn't get to Secretary Walters or Dr. Hodnett in this case because I got stopped. But that individual told me, well, it's in the state law that we can't, share the home study results with parents. And I found it to be very conflicting because I had a home study completed on behalf of Department of Children and Family Services by the Catholic Community Services for a child-specific adoption. I got a copy of that home study. Which was commissioned by the DCFS. So I'm not sure when the policy changed, don't know. But I kept pursuing getting a copy of the home study or at least discussing it with someone. Not sure whom became privy to my complaint, but I got a copy of the home study. Someone mailed it to me from inside of DCFS anonymously. I got it. And when I got the home study, I was livid. So some people may be getting approved to be foster parents who may not, in actuality, be qualified to be foster parents because my home study was copied and pasted from somebody else's. It's like a template was used, and they simply took the information from one home study and possibly others, and put the information into my home study. The names of my children were wrong. The dates of birth were wrong. The schools attended were wrong. The ages were wrong. They had me being born in 1976 when my oldest child was born in 1986. So that didn't look too great because that meant I had a child at 10 years of age. So, of course, I was very, very upset. I put it in writing, sent a certified letter. I made a copy. I highlighted all of the errors. That got their attention. Secretary Walters assigned someone to get in touch with me, and that was Miss Karen Washington. I met with her. She apologized for the home study because it was, grammatically speaking, it was horrible. Run-on sentences, sentence fragments, paragraphs just left out. It was like a third grader had written this report. And she apologized. So we got together and she corrected it. Well, in the process of this, that same child welfare worker ended up sending a disparaging email about me. Now, she used that same email thread that I had sent the complaint on, not realizing that I was included on the email. And she was talking about me. And this is what she said, quote, "You all better make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's when you dealing with this woman. She will hold your feet to the fire." Not realizing I was also a part of that email. And I responded to all, "You are absolutely right." And I made sure she was removed from being my child welfare worker because she had already established this bias. It's not that I was out to get anyone or to antagonize anyone, but I wanted I wanted her to do her job. You fabricated a home study. You put information in there that was incorrect. You didn't care. You got mad when I called you out on it. Then you made me a target. in this office. So what they started doing was they wouldn't call me for children. They wouldn't call me at all. They had set up like a bullseye on my back. So at that point, I requested, because I did eventually get some kids who they stated they couldn't find homes for, and they tried this and tried that, and I just happened to know one of the foster parents. So I did get some kids, but I requested at the same time to have my case transferred to the Baton Rouge office until I was told this worker was going to get some sensitivity training and that she was going to retire. So I wanted to go to another region just temporarily until this worker retired. So that is the request that I put in. Eventually, I was told by other foster parents, because I'm supposed to be in the Thibodeau region, I requested to go back because I do something very similar. So I work with a lot of parents in the Baton Rouge area, and it was causing a conflict of interest. So when I was told that the caseworker had retired, I put in a request in writing to be transferred back to my region. I was told by one of these regional directors that it was going to be done. He assured me it was going to be done. My case sat and sat and sat. Then I found out that I didn't even have a home development worker, and nobody had told me. So my case had just been sitting there collecting dust. We were not getting any calls, even though we had availability. I subsequently wrote another email, and that led to a Zoom meeting with this middle level manager and his colleague. They're on the same level, but they run two different regions. So he was over 3 regions, she was over 3 regions. I was told that my case was going to go back to the original place where it was supposed to be, because I have a relationship with these foster parents. I live in this region. So I was assured it was going back to the Thibodeau region. It did not. So once again, I started writing emails. I got in touch with Dr. Hodnett. She and I conversed about this. She said, okay, she was going to put our family back in the Thibodeau region. Well, that didn't manifest because that manager, who I had the Zoom meeting with in the comfort, while she was in the comfort of her home sipping tea or coffee or whatever, she intervened. And her excuse was, oh, we're shorthanded. We're going to put you in the Covington region. So I have a home development worker all the way over in the Slidell area, and I live in Ascension Parish. So I'm not getting it. I wasn't getting any calls, and I'm a part of the Thibodeau region where there's a great need for foster parents. The need is so great that they're going on Facebook saying, do you have openings? Can you please take these kids? But I can't get a call because I'm in this region so far away, and the only way I get that call is if they have to send these requests to other regions. So that's another problem, that they have these regions set up with home development. So my thing is, as some of these workers, some of the actual employees have stated, some of the issues have to do with harassment. It has to do with oversight, too much oversight, and it also have to do with biases. Because this, unfortunately, Dr. Hodnett convinced me to go to this region against my better judgment, and it has been a nightmare for me and my family. That's just one of the issues. Another issue, what I have found, caseworkers do not do their due diligence. When kids are brought into the system, it was, to my understanding, when I became a foster parent, is that the goal of taking these kids in is reunification, if at all possible. They're supposed to seek out a suitable relative. That is not being done at all. It's not being done. So kids are languishing in the system because they're not trying to find relatives. I'm working with a child right now, and that is the case. So I know this to be a fact. Some cases are fast-tracked, meaning that whoever that caseworker is and however she writes that case, they push those kids through for adoption. Sometimes foster parents sabotage that because they want to adopt. And that's the unfortunate thing. because we're certified as foster and we're certified as foster to adopt. But I would never sabotage a child's reunification goal at the expense of my wanting to have that child for myself. And that's an issue. Another issue is breaking up sibling groups when there are homes available in other regions. I just experienced this about 2 months ago. A sibling group came in, it was 4. That sibling group had a family in another region that agreed to take them. This came from the child welfare worker. She said, I found a home for them, but my supervisor would not allow me to place the kids in that home because it was outside of the region. So you know what happened? They split those kids up into 4 separate homes across 2 regions. Even though there was a home that was willing to take all 4 and head the room. So it's these hidden biases like this and these selfish ideas that they have about where children should and should not be. Another issue that I have found, when it comes to children of color, they're quick to call a family that's not a person of color or a family that's of color. But flip it around. If it's a Caucasian child or a child that is not a minority, they're very hesitant to place that child with black families. I know because I was called about 2 weeks ago, and the child that they called me about. And finally, families that are interested in adoption have been overlooked for a placement and are not considered due to a lack of information of their certification in a statewide database. And I'm bringing this up because families have asked me to bring this up. There's no database at all to verify whether or not a family is certified for adoption and or foster care. They you have to give your caseworker's name to another caseworker who then calls the other region to verify if you are actually certified. And in 2022, with all the technology that we have, there is no reason why there should not be a statewide database. These are my experiences with this agency, and I guarantee you, since I have been very vocal about it, and I'm going on record again stating that I would like to be back in my region where I live so that I can get kids from my region. But these are issues, and unfortunately, Secretary Walters is sweet as she can be. Dr. Renda Hodnett, phenomenal. I even have her personal cell phone number. But it is those people below them, those middle level managers, those regional managers who happen to be over 3 different parish offices or however they want to go. That's where your biggest problem is. That's where your problem is, along with these supervisors that are managers of these parish offices. That's your biggest problem.
Thank you. Your testimony is so insightful. And just so you and the public know, we take in all of that into the minutes. We're going to work on a lot of these issues. There's different agencies that look at different things, like the Legislative Auditor's Office is going to probably take in your testimony. So we want you to know that there's checks and balances. I know you've heard the department's thought process, their vision. But we thank you so much for being out there to take care of our children. And anytime you want to send this committee any information, we're happy to receive it.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you for education for the kids. We do have a question from Senator Fessy.
It's not really a question. I just want to thank you for coming forward, because exactly what you're saying is what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing from a lot of people. And like you said, it's not the secretary or assistant. It's in between, and that's what I was saying about the layers of management. We need to fix it. So I agree with you 100%, because everything you said, I've heard 3 or 4 times, and it's something that we have to get a handle on, and it's devastating these children. But when you told me you separated 4 siblings, that's the worst thing you could do.
Yes, I agree.
So we need to fix it and fix it quick. So thank you so much for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Senator Carter. Thank you. I just want to also echo the comments from Senator Fessy and thank you for providing your testimony today and your experiences and sharing that with this committee. I certainly have heard, Madam Secretary, as well, allegations about racism, allegations about people not being treated fairly. Is that being investigated as well? I know we're doing a lot in terms of numbers and budgets and making sure that we're recruiting and making sure that people are properly trained. Are we also implementing diversity training and make certain that allegations of racism are addressed and then they're stamped out wherever we find them? I see you nodding, but as we continue this, I just want to make sure that remains part of our focus, is addressing all concerns. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
I think that there's an ongoing list, so we can either have the
Add that to the
secretary-
list, please.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Senator Carter. If you want to,
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Stacy McPherson. I was not prepared